Okay, hello and welcome to podcast number 12, Sacred Path School. All right, so this podcast, this is the last episode, as I have foretold in the previous episodes when I said I was going to do the last one. So first of all, I apologise that it's taken so long to get round to doing this final episode in series one. Life's kind of got in the way with various things, but anyway, finally got there. So this podcast episode is kind of like a bit of a rave, I suppose, just to kind of finish off the whole series and try and put it all together. And also, what I said is I would answer, some of those questions from my own perspective. What are the big questions and how do you actually answer it? All right, so let's just go. Like I said, I'm going to sort of jump around a little bit. So apologies if it is a bit disjointed, but so remember where we started with all this is asking the question of how do you walk a sacred path through life? So obviously this sort of stuff arises from the initial question of like, what the hell are we doing here anyway? What's the meaning of life? All that sort of stuff. Why? I think I suggested to you right at the start, sorry, I should go back and listen to it, but I think I suggested to you right at the start that really what you need to develop is what's called an epistemology, so a sort of framework for understanding how to put all this sort of stuff together, because otherwise obviously it's a bit too overwhelming. And in terms of how to go into like creating that epistemology, what I've said is that there's a few key questions that you can ask that allow you to slowly sort of dig into how you're actually seeing the world and how you actually lead a good life. So as I said, let's start. So, and I suppose I should start as well in just reiterating a couple of like key points on this that I'd really like to make and kind of like why I'm doing this. So the first thing that I would say is that what I believe is that where we are now in 2022 is that we are in a pretty significant time of change for the world and a big paradigm shift. So a big paradigm shift is needed because the problems that we're facing in the world are global problems. So things like climate change, overpopulation, poverty, all those sorts of things, they're global issues. And so I think and I strongly believe that the way that we've organised social structures and things like that based on the principles of competitiveness has really run its course. And that if we're going to evolve to another level as a species, I suppose, as a human species, that we need to find ways of being able to collaborate better together, being able to work better together. And so a lot of the things that I see in the world now, like with regard to judgment, right, wrong type thinking, some of the sort of bad behaviour, the vilification that you see on social media is obviously not good, right? And we need to find ways of actually moving beyond that. And I think where you start, like you can start about like complaining about the system and complaining about, they did this and they did this and blah, blah, blah. But I think where you really need to start with all this stuff is with the self. So this is the reason why I started the Sacred Path School, and why I run like self-mastery type programs, because what I truly believe is that you need to find your own answers, but you also, I think, need to find your own answers accepting the fact that we are living in a world where we do need to find ways of, as I said, like working together as a species and basically supporting each other. So having said that, because it's a pretty big thing to take on, I would also add there that just to remember that in all this sort of stuff, I think that the key at the end of the day is really about like how do you actually lead a happy life, and obviously a happy life means different things to different people, but really that's so much about trying to lead a life where you can be enjoy what you're doing, enjoy the path, and get to the end of your life and look back and be able to think, okay, I led a good life. So hence, be able to walk a sacred path through life, like a path of ascension. And along that path, I truly believe that the key superpowers in that are curiosity and gratitude. So being able to be endlessly curious about life, because life obviously has some pretty big challenges, but to be curious about it and to continue like stimulating your mind. To be grateful for the gifts that you have in life, like no matter how many challenges you have, really the key is to try and find ways of, as I said, finding things that you're grateful for. And worthwhile reading Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. So obviously, well, not obviously, Viktor Frankl went through a challenging situation of being in, in concentration camps in Second World War, and potential of being sent off to the gas chambers at any time and dying. And I think that book is really a seminal book in hope, really, hope and the power of faith, of believing in the possibility of something else, something better than what you're getting now. So then the poisons, so superpowers, curiosity and gratitude. The poisons, cynicism and sarcasm. And again, like really, really easy to buy into cynical and sarcastic views on the world, really easy to be cynical and sarcastic, but I think has very long-term negative effects on both yourself and the people that you associate with. So with regard to sarcasm, what I'd say is diminishes your relationship with truth. And you need to be able to walk a path of truth so that A, you can trust yourself, and B, you can form trusting relationships with other people. And again, it goes back to, you're not in this alone. You do need to find ways of working with others, and as I said, sort of connecting with yourself in a deep way and a more integral way. And the second poison I would say is cynicism. So cynicism is really the last refuge of the rational mind, and cynicism takes you down the path of only being able to believe in what you can, see, feel, touch, that sort of stuff. It cuts off the possibility of anything sort of bigger than that. And again, for that reason, I think it limits you and can drive you down this path of going, well, what's the use? You can't believe in anything bigger than what you see now. And so, some of the things obviously you see now happening in the world, whether it be wars, bad treatment of people, etc., can really, I suppose, crush your faith and crush your belief. So you need to find ways of actually nurturing that. Okay. All right. So having said that, so let's just go into this and have a look at like what these sort of key questions say. How do you actually dig into this? So, and I'll just sort of walk through the questions and just explain what some of the implications are. So remember that of going into this, so you start off with this position of, okay, so what am I doing here? What's the meaning of life? How do I actually walk a sacred path through life? How do I lead a good life? And I think that in trying to answer that question, obviously that's a really big question, but in trying to answer that question, you need some way of understanding the world, and you need to understand what the assumptions are that you are standing on, right? Because the assumptions are really the foundation for your being, and you can like intellectualize stuff as much as you want, but if you're standing on some sort of shaky foundations, your building, if you like, or your character is going to be pretty frail. So the first question to ask, which I suggest to you, is to ask the question of what is your belief between free will and destiny? Okay, so how much of life do you think is fixed? So in other words, totally beyond your power, and how much do you believe that you can change? So if you believe in destiny or fate, so you're destined or fate to be here, your life path is already set, that sort of stuff. So then it will change the way that you, I suppose, work on the self or do anything to do with like personal development, because you go, okay, that's just who I am. Like the scorpion and the frog. Hey, I'm a scorpion. Bad luck. Just suck it up. That's the deal, right? If you believe in free will, obviously you can change anything. All right. So what I believe is that it's a mix between the two. I believe that you come into the world, and there's certain things that obviously you can't change. So you can't change the circumstances of your birth. So some people are very fortunate to be born into, I would say, sort of easy circumstances. So whether it be, born into a life of, affluence, right, which obviously has its own challenges in itself. You see people with like lots and lots of money and lots of opportunity and end up, going down, the drug path and possibly even like suicide, that sort of stuff, right? So obviously it's hard to change those sorts of, you can't change the circumstance of your life. That's why you're born. And obviously that's kind of like a lottery, because you can be born into a good or bad environment. Obviously different countries, if you're a woman, for example, to be born into Afghanistan at this time, where there's sort of pretty bad treatment of women, it was obviously going to shape your life in a very different way to be born in Australia, for example. So those sorts of things obviously you can't change. As to whether or not you choose those sorts of circumstances before you come into life, yeah, possibly. There's certainly lots of different teachings around that to suggest that we choose our parents, or that we come into life to create opportunities where we can cleanse ourselves of various karma. So you think of like a Buddhist type perspective. What I think though is that, yes, I think there are some things where you have opportunity. So maybe you have opportunity to do something from a destiny type perspective. It doesn't mean that you have to do it. And the best way I think I've heard this explained is I was listening to somebody, I can't even remember who it was, sorry, but they were saying that in your life you have moments loaded with destiny, right? Moments loaded with destiny. So there's times in your life where you face a junction point, and that I would say is a moment loaded with destiny. So if you go this way, obviously it's going to shape your life from that point forward. That way it's going to shape your life. And there's a movie on that. I think it's called Sliding Doors, if you're curious, where if you take this path, everything changes. Take this path, everything changes. All right. So there's that sort of stuff is going on, which is obviously, as I said, pretty significant. It has some pretty big implications for a couple of things. So, and then this is really, if you get to let's move on to the next question. So free will versus destiny. All right. So what I would say is it's a mix between the two. Yes, you come into the world with some possibilities of, destiny type events, that maybe you have opportunities to clear various karma or opportunities to do various things. And then you have moments loaded with destiny where really you have an opportunity to step up to that. So the free will thing is obviously you have an opportunity to exercise your free will in a whole lot of different circumstances. But again, I don't think you should take that for granted, because our freedom really is about our power to make choices. And you can miss those opportunities very quickly. I think Carlos Castaneda talked about the cubic centimetre of opportunities, so that you have this cubic centimetre of opportunity presented to you at various times. And for most people, it passes by them. So they completely miss it because you're mindless, so you completely miss it. But Carlos Castaneda talks about, from a warrior's perspective, the warrior is always aware of that cubic centimetre of opportunity and aware of the opportunity that arises with it. And you could also talk about that from the perspective of like a Buddhist perspective. In Buddhism, you talk about samsaric loops, that we go round and round and round these samsaric loops. And one of the key things you want to be able to do is to unwind those loops, so that you can be like truly present to what's happening now. So hence the benefit of doing mindfulness, meditation, those sorts of things. So anything I think that allows you to be as present as possible is going to make you more aware of those sorts of moments, those serendipitous moments, those serendipitous opportunities, moments loaded with destiny and things like that, to actually do it before it passes you by. Hence the benefit of doing various practices. All right, so let's go on to the second question though. So the second question is like how the world works, right? Now, so this is the thing. Remember when we went through this I can't remember what episode, sorry, but you can go back and listen to it if you're curious, or read some stuff. But basically, if you think about how the world works, so one of the things you want to know about how the world works is, okay, so are we here like just for this lifetime, and then when life finishes, done? Okay. Which obviously some people believe that, there's no great higher power, anything like that. Or are we here repeatedly and continually? So do we circle around in this reincarnation type thing, which means we get different opportunities in different lives, etc., etc., etc. And that's some pretty big implications for like how you might, as I said, walk a sacred path. All right. So from my perspective, I feel that, we do repeatedly come through life. I've had experiences where I've had a whole lot of weird experiences, but one experience in particular, one experience in particular was I was in South Africa. I had a very bad bike accident. Face planted basically at 50 kilometres an hour into a bitumen road, broke my neck, which I didn't know at the time, fractured my C7 vertebrae, and just about bled to death in the middle of the road, and had a near-death experience. And interestingly enough, it was basically aligned to, the stuff that you read about, or maybe you've seen with near-death experiences, where you see white light, you hear voices, blah, 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 right? So for me, that was a pretty, as you can imagine, significant event. But it did make me think about, and I suppose really from a certain way for me, sort of confirmed that there are other realms that you go into. Obviously, you don't know 100% until you die, and then of course it's too late because then you're dead, right? But what I believe is that we do circle back around. We do reincarnate. I don't think there's a continuum. So I think maybe you spend some time in other realms before you come back. And I would also, also interested in from the Buddhist perspective, where they say that, that you're trying to basically get enlightened, you're trying to get lighter and lighter and lighter as you go through different lives, and that at some point you can actually escape this loop of being reborn. Now that raises some questions. And like I said, depending upon, I'm not saying that I'm right. All I'm saying is that it's worth asking that question, because it's going to have an interesting implication for how you lead your life and how you walk a path or walk a sacred path through life. Obviously, that has some pretty implications for the whole notion of karma, right? Because can karma go through lifetimes? Well, from a Buddhist perspective, they believe that karma actually the trails of karma, if you like, go through different lifetimes, and that you might reincarnate in a challenging circumstances. So see, we're going back to the original question. So you might reincarnate in challenging circumstances to give you a bigger opportunity to cleanse yourself of bad karma, right? So again, how do we actually shed ourselves as like the dark side or the shadow side, and allow ourselves to ascend in a light way? Now, also the implications for that, also how the world works. So now if we go back to destiny, right, and how the world works, so this raises some interesting questions. So if you believe in destiny, right, so if you believe that your life path is fixed and you come into this life to do particular things, okay, then it's going to have implications, like there's some ethical dilemmas and ethical questions as well that might arise out of that. So one that arises out of that is, which is often brought up, Ricky Gervais, I think, brought this up in his recent Netflix comedy special. So he had a little picture of a little baby, and he said, would you kill this baby? Basically, what he came out as it's Hitler, okay? So Adolf Hitler. So obviously Adolf Hitler perpetrated some very bad, I would say, sort of crimes against humanity. So if you believe in destiny, so if you believe that your destiny in life is fixed, then think about this. If you could travel back in time, would you kill Hitler as a baby? Right, that's a pretty confronting question to ask. So would you kill a baby? So would you kill the baby knowing that this is Hitler and it's going to grow into a person who's going to perpetrate all the horrible things that Hitler did? Very, very confronting question. From my perspective, so like I said, I believe in a mix between free will and destiny. So there's moments loaded with destiny. So all of us have the opportunity for redemption at some point. And see how, again, this goes back to what your belief in is in humanity. So if you believe that people are fundamentally good, right, so that all babies, for example, start off being fundamentally good, then you're going to respond to life in a different way than if you believe that like I said, in destiny, in some way that it's fixed, and that some babies even are going to grow into monsters, so therefore we should kill them at a young age. Personally, right, I could not do that. Personally, I believe, like I said, that there is the power of redemption, and even if you listen to, say, for example, the Lord's Prayer in Christianity, the Lord's Prayer, first line of the Lord's Prayer is "Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us." So, basically, the whole idea of redemption and the power of forgiveness and compassion, etc., etc., and see how this again is going to flow back into the whole what I was saying at the start about accepting the fact that basically we're in this together. And so we have to find some way of working together, right? So working together to look after each other together. And as soon as we go into like judgment, and fixed type thinking, and I would say destiny and fate is fixed type thinking, then we have no opportunity to, I suppose, move forward. If you look at it in the perspective of moments loaded with destiny, and if we went back through and looked at Hitler's life, what I would suggest to you, there'll be moments there when he had the power to choose, right? Choose this way, choose that way. See, that's moments, right? And obviously choosing that way took him down the path of ending up being, a dictator and perpetrating very bad crimes against humanity. But if he'd made some other choices along the way, I don't believe that he would have ended up like that. Okay. So see how again you've got to actually dig into these questions of how you believe the world works, and again some of the things you can ask, some of the ways of actually digging into that is to think about your childhood and think about the stories that you were told about how you have a happy life or how you have a good life, some of the anecdotes and things, the childhood fables. The moral of the story is blah blah blah, and what the implications are as you move forward. But again, worthwhile like digging into this. And some of those things as well, you might find if you were brought up in a particularly, I was going to say bad way, but let's say sort of challenging way, you might challenge some of those underlying beliefs, but it's worthwhile again digging into that, because those underlying beliefs are going to have implications. And also there's implications there of things like, what do you believe around the whole notion of luck? So what does luck play in success? What role does luck play in success? So do you have to be lucky to be successful, or is it all about hard work? All of those sorts of things are going to have implications for how you actually behave. Okay. The next story, little kookaburra going there. The next story to look into is who you believe you are. Again, some of these things, this has implications for what you believe is possible in your life, and also for the whole notion of self-efficacy. So self-efficacy is belief about whether or not you can actually do it. So if you were told all along in your life that you don't have much ability, or this is what your life is, bad luck, just deal with it, suck it up, whatever, then it's going to change obviously the way that you respond to life's challenges. The other thing about it is that and this is kind of like a weird thing, if you're brought up with the belief of, or told that you're really talented, you're really successful, you need to go a long way in life, you need to work hard, blah, 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 then you see how it changes your expectation. So if you have an expectation that you should be sort of here in life, you should have this much abundance or whatever, and obviously, and if that doesn't manifest in your life, then possibly it's going to create more unhappiness, because you might have like a sort of an average life, and your expectation of what you're being brought up in was that you should have a like fantastic life, blah, 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 blah. So you might have like a sort of reasonable level of abundance, for example, in your life, but your expectation is that you should have had excess abundance. And so you'll constantly be going, oh, what I'm getting isn't very good, and therefore I'm not going to be happy. See how it's relative? If though you were brought up with the belief of, that your life is, maybe you were brought up in a poor, challenging environment, and your parents taught you that you should just be grateful for everything you've got. You haven't got much, but you should be grateful for what you've got. And your level of expectation for life is going to be quite low. Okay, so basically any level of sort of abundance is going to bring you a decent amount of happiness. And personally, I saw that whilst I was in Africa. I had quite a good opportunity to travel around and visit various quite isolated villages like Zulu villages, and often those people had like nothing, like didn't even have clean drinking water, often didn't have enough food, etc., no money, but they were really happy, right? So see how it's the expectation thing. And again, like, why are we asking these questions? Okay, to be able to dig into it so you can actually work out what you're actually standing on, because you can do like kind of surface level fixes, but what I'd suggest to you is that if you really want to ask these questions and walk a sacred path, you need to like dig into, okay, what are these assumptions? What am I standing on? All right, so dig into that story about who you are and what you were told when you were growing up, particularly in relation to what you believe you deserve from life. So in other words, what your expectations are, and what the implications are for how you actually live your life. Okay, next, worthwhile digging into vision and value stuff, right? So again, like vision stuff is, what's your vision for a good life? So what does big picture stuff look like? And with this I find is a challenging question, and it kind of, well, for obvious reasons, but often in the West, right, the visioning stuff, the closest thing we get to the visioning stuff is, what are you going to do in your life? And because of the way the brain works, so the brain wants to work in like a set and forget type way. So we think, oh, I'm going to do my life vision, that's it, done, right? No, it doesn't work that way. What I would say is, and if you've listened to these podcasts, what I would say is you need to like stop thinking in like a fixed linear way and think about cycles, think about circles, and ideally like walking a sacred path is a spiraling upwards, basically getting better and better, right? And also accepting the fact that there's going to be challenges in your life, so it's not all going to be linear, it's not all going to be roses, you're going to go more like this, up and down, up and down. There's going to be good times, going to be bad times, etc. With regard to life vision, what does life vision look like? So we cover this in the podcast. But what I would say is like think about it in terms of like from the curiosity perspective, and I'd get like a big sheet of paper, get out the coloured pencils, stuff like that, and start thinking about, okay, so if I'm at the end of my life, I've had a good life, like what does that actually look like? What's the essence of what that looked like? What are the things that I want to see? So, what I would say at the end of my life, I want to feel at the end of my life that I've actually fully engaged with life, that I haven't actually, wasted any opportunities, that I've made the most of the circumstances in my life, that I've, loved and lost, like as a George Bernard Shaw quote, loved and lost and enjoyed things and not held back and not let fear dominate my life. And see how when you're doing like life visioning stuff, what you want to do is on the basis of essence rather than form. So form is, I want to have a big house, I want to have this sort of car, this much money, blah, 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 blah. See, that's all form. The essence is more like the stuff that I was talking about then, about, having love, having abundance, having fun, enjoyment, etc., etc., etc. Now, when you do life visioning, what we know from the neurocognitive science stuff is that when you're thinking about yourself, there's a part of the brain that's activated, and don't ask me which part, you can look it up, right? But when you're thinking about yourself more than about 2 years out, that part of the brain is not activated. So if you do the whole thing, and this often comes up where people go, and there's a bit of stuff like talked about or over the last few years, about the whole benefit of doing, you got to do a vision board, you got to do this, got to do that, okay? But what I would say is when you do the big picture visioning stuff, end of life stuff, great, do that, but then come back and say, okay, if that's where I want to be at the end of my life, where do I need to be, or where do I want to be in like 1 year's time or 2 years' time, right? So in other words, go out to the outer limit of what the brain can kind of cope with in terms of associating that it's you. Because when you're thinking about it more than 2 years out, that part of the brain, when you think about yourself, is not activated. So if you have the vision stuff and you're saying long-term vision stuff, and you're saying, I want to do this, therefore in the present moment, I need to make this sacrifice, your brain does not understand that that's you. So it thinks, why am I sacrificing for somebody else, right? That's why you bring it all the way back to 1 year or 2 years. And that's when you can start getting a bit more concrete about it. And again, that's where you want to embed these circular feedback loops, right? So what does that mean? How am I circling around? And all the time is playing, all the time experimenting, being curious, I wonder what happens there. And all the time, I would say, remembering that the real gift in life is right now, right? So how can you be happy right now? How can you make the most of right now? How can you actually suck the most out of life right now? Okay, that's the real guts of it. And when you're worrying about what's going to happen in a year's time, 2 years time, end of my life, whatever, part of your attention is gone over there. So I'm not saying don't do it. What I'm saying is do it in a structured way. Right, so you do your visioning once you do your life visioning, then do your vision once. Check in with your vision once a year. Am I on track? So see how it's circular. Set your intention and go again. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Where do we get to? Values. Okay, so values. Values. So two things with values. So values is, what are the things that you see as being, sort of key, true north type things in life that are going to give purpose and direction to your life. So things like freedom, justice, truth, honesty, loyalty, sincerity, respect, honor, etc. Okay. Key thing with the values is head, hand, heart, right? So intellectually convinced they're true. So we go, yeah, you know how we can go, yeah, I believe in these values. All right. Then you want to translate it into action. So we want to say, A, how does it make you feel? So how does gratitude, for example, make you feel? So gratitude is one of the values. Okay, great. How does it make you feel? How does it make you feel when somebody says thank you to you? How does it make you feel when you express gratitude to somebody else, right? Then the third thing is hand. Translate it into action. And what I would say with action is think about what are the habitual processes, what are the habitual actions that support that value. So for me, for example, what supports the value of gratitude is every single day, so in daily practice, asking the question, what am I grateful for today? Right? So continually represencing, what am I grateful for today? What am I grateful for today, right? And then the second thing is looking for opportunities to express appreciation. So spread it out into the world. So again, look after people. So if somebody does something nice to you, make sure you say to them, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. If you go to a cafe, and have a cup of coffee before you leave, say thank you very much. If you're in traffic and somebody lets you in traffic, stick your hand out the window, say thank you very much, express appreciation. It's the whole thing, courtesy is contagious, right? But again, come back to what sort of life do you want to lead, right? What are the values that are going to guide you? And what are you actually going to do about it? Okay, what are you actually going to do about it? The next one there, next question to ask there is, I've got here, how do you revisit life vision? So what are the little circular feedback loops that you want to put in place? And as I said, strongly and highly recommend that you do daily practice. Tim Ferriss, when he started doing his podcast, worthwhile listening to a few of the early podcasts where he had guests, and he was pretty good at asking people, what's your daily practice? What's your daily routine? What's your daily practice? And pretty much all of them had a routine. Now, there's two things there. So the first thing to be aware of is that the brain finds comfort in routines, right? So it can be good routines, bad routines. And obviously what you want to do is you want to try and embed some good routines. So some of the good routines are, what's my daily routine in the morning that basically gets me up, ready to go for the day? So do meditation, set intention, jump in a freezing cold pool, go for a run, do some yoga, whatever. But always to be asking, what is my intention for today, okay? So we want to shift out of reactiveness and be intentional. During the day, check in with, how you're going. If you're off track, acknowledge and redirect. Don't waste time beating yourself up. Beating yourself up is a complete waste of energy, okay? End of the day, what am I grateful for? What did I do right today, okay? So the right stuff is about the attention. So you want to direct the mind's attention. What am I paying attention to? If you're paying attention to all the crappy things in your life, it's very hard to uphold an intention to be peaceful, whatever, right? So you want to make sure you draw your attention to what am I doing right? What are the good things? So that's daily practice. Weekly practice, circle back around, weekly practice, obviously especially good in terms of achievement. So if you think about like the happiness practices, so think about Martin Seligman's PERMA model, so PERMA. If you're curious about that, have a look at the website Authentic Happiness, and obviously have a look at all the books and all the work that he's done. But in the PERMA model, one of the key things he says, A, is accomplishment. So we do need to accomplish some things in our life, right? And I would say weekly reflective practice is very much about accomplishment. So I'd go end of Friday, it's Friday today. So today I'll go, okay, what have I done right this week? So note that always your first question in reflective practice should be, what am I doing right? So draw your attention to the good stuff. That's because the way the brain is going to default into what you did wrong, right? So what you did wrong. So you've got that covered, don't worry about that. Draw your attention to what have you done right? So this week, what have you done right? Okay, what have you done right? What are you grateful for? Then I'd go, okay, so what are my challenges and blocks? So what are the challenges and blocks you face? What possible ideas have you got to move that forward? So experiments that you can run, etc., etc., etc. And then I would set intention. So draw a line in the sand on that week, right? And then set intention for the next week. What's my key intention for next week? And I might have like sort of 3 or 4 intentions for next week, okay? Then monthly practice. So monthly practice, obviously a bit bigger than that. So I'll go see how we're going circles within circles within circles. So monthly practice, so personally I use the moon cycles. I find the moon cycles very useful just in terms of attuning to, something that's not all about, calendars and clocks and blah, blah, blah. Monthly cycle, I'm just going to go, same thing. What have you done right this month? Okay. Anything you need to let go of. So any bad behavior you need to let go of. So if you've been mean to somebody, right? Done something that's at odds with your values, spent a whole lot of time beating yourself up, obviously doing anything like bad, like, overindulging in alcohol or drugs or anything like that. Bad habitual behavior like staying up far too late and perpetually watching Netflix, anything like that, you need to let go of. Make a decision, acknowledge, I need to let go of this behavior, right? Then draw a line in the sand. Again, always try and let go of the past, let go of the past, let go of the past. We don't want to carry all this stuff forwards, right? Ascension is about how you can be as light as possible. So if you want to be light, you want to let go of baggage, right? So you want to let go of baggage, go round and round and round, okay? And then I'd go, okay, so what's my key intention for this month? And so my key intention for the month will be literally a word or two. So for example, it might be just be gentle with yourself. Okay, something like that, or just be present, be empathetic, be compassionate, whatever it is, okay? It's a monthly cycle. Then the big leap is the yearly stuff, right? So yearly stuff, I'll circle back around, do a vision quest, right? So for me personally, I quite like the American Indian teachings on vision questing. Vision questing you do in the equinoxes. So in the equinox, the energies of the cosmos, if you like, are in balance, equal day, equal night, and basically just check in. So there's a process that I go through. If you're curious, you can look at, you can look at the Sacred Path School on Thinkific. There's a Vision Quest program you can do, structured Vision Quest program, which is only like $35, I think. It's cheap anyway. It'll take you through a whole lot of different exercises you can ask, right? You can also do vision questing, like I said, in American Indian way. So sit in polenta circles overnight, which is another way where you're calling in vision. And obviously, you see all this relates back to how you believe the world works, right? Because if you believe that there's other realms, spirit guides, ancestors, whatever, then you can call in vision. So you can sit in circle and you say, okay, show me, call it in, right? If you don't believe in that sort of stuff, if you believe that the more fixed, what would you call it, material world, then you can do visioning from a more intellectual perspective. Okay. The key, though, that I would say with this is to make sure that you allow opportunities, and again, sorry just to say it again, but again, depends on what you believe, but that you allow opportunities for serendipity. Right, so serendipitous type events are events that you've never planned for, but where, things just suddenly come together and something amazing happens, okay? If you lock everything down far too much, so if you think about everything, plan everything down, you can eliminate the possibility of serendipitous type events because you're thinking about it too much, too controlled. Okay, so there is benefit in like allowing space and creating opportunities for serendipity. Okay, so I strongly recommend that. Yeah, so once a year, check back in, life vision. So am I on track with my life vision? If not, obviously make adjustments, right? And then it's important to remember with the visioning type stuff is basically then to put it to one side. So don't constantly keep asking, oh, what's my life purpose? What's my life purpose? What am I doing? Your life purpose will evolve as you live it, right? If you spend your whole time thinking about it, you're not living it, you're not being in the present moment. So obviously you can't evolve, right? You're not stirring the pot. That's the key thing with all of this is do that sort of work, but then come back to the present. It's why, Buddhist meditation, it's all about, being in the present. Same, the breathing, mindfulness, etc., be in the present. Same with like the happiness type research. It's about how can you be in the present. Flow type activities are about how you can be in the present moment, how you can let go of time. Yeah, actually, I suppose you should have mentioned there with the happiness thing as well. So again, with the happiness thing, make a decision. Make a decision to be happy. Make a decision, I would like to be happy. And then let go of trying to be happy and actually work on the process, right? And I mentioned before, like, one of the key things there is actually, doesn't matter if you use the PERMA stuff, doesn't matter if you use the flow stuff, it's basically about actually working out what are the practices, right? What are the practices that you need to do? And then doing those practices repeatedly and continually, not constantly going, am I happy, am I happy, am I happy? Because if you're focusing on are you happy and how happy you are, then often what you focus on is the fact that you're not happy, paradoxically. That's what I mean, all this is like a little dance, okay? All right, so then we go, what are the habitual practices that you do? So see how all of this is not about fixing self, okay? And again, some of the sort of basic things that I would suggest to embed, beliefs that I would embed, which is quite challenging, is that whatever I'm getting right now is perfect, right? And you might say, but it's not, it's shit, right? Okay. But see how this is subjective and it's perceptual. So as soon as you actually start saying this is shit, what I'm getting now is shit, then basically you're going to draw your attention to why it's shit, and you're going to suffer with confirmation bias, and basically it's going to be more shit, right? And you might say, but it is shit. Like the facts are that it's shit. And say, okay, like facts like what? Oh, I haven't got any money, I'm in a challenging relationship, my health issues are bad, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yes. And this is where, again, to make a decision about whether or not you want to be a realistic pessimist or a delusional optimist. Personally, I prefer to be a delusional optimist, okay? So part of that thing is about trying to, no matter how challenging your circumstances are, is to try and make peace with it and say, okay, I don't know why this is happening right now, but whatever is happening is perfect. And then start looking for the good stuff, looking for the things that you're grateful for, looking for the things that are going right, and trying to put energy into that and growing that. Remembering that whatever you're paying attention to is going to have a significant influence on your intention, right? So you really want to direct your attention to the good stuff. And again, I'm not trying to sugarcoat it, because sometimes in life you go through challenging circumstances. And it's going to go back to the whole initial question you asked about how you believe the world works. Because if you believe, again, that believe in reincarnation, believe in karma, believe in cleansing karma and stuff like that, challenging circumstance isn't necessarily a bad thing in terms of long-term well-being, because again, from a Buddhist perspective, one of the things they say is that challenging circumstances give you the best opportunity to ripen your karma. See how it's all perspective, right? But that's the key thing. So habitual practices. All right, so habitual practice. So what I would say is, daily practice, critical, embed, reflective practice, those sorts of things, allow serendipity, go through those things. We went through the sort of personal well-being, so physical, mental, emotional, material, spiritual. So go through all of that, work out what good looks like in all of that, and then embed habitual practices. So physical practice, emotional practices, mental practice, spiritual practice, material practice. So that over a long period of time, right, you're drawing a future towards you. So you're never trying to fix yourself, right? Never trying to fix yourself. You're basically embracing what's happening right now, but you're habitually acting in a way that's drawing a particular future towards you or encouraging that future to come towards you. Also, the other thing to ask, which you mentioned before, is to make sure that you have some process and practice to reset. So if you're off track for whatever reason, you know, having a crappy time, feeling sad, feeling depressed, whatever's going on, what's your process for snapping yourself out of it? Like, who are the people that are in your corner? How do you get out of it? And I'd say to you, you need to work that out in advance, because when you're in the midst of one of those situations, it's very hard to think straight, right? You just see darkness, like, especially if you are affected, you know, in a more significant way. So you say clinical type of depression, that sort of stuff. How do you find your way out of the darkness, okay? Whilst you're thinking about this stuff, whilst you have the capacity to think about this stuff, embed some processes in there to allow yourself to dig yourself out of that hole early. So as you're sliding down the slippery slope, you want to be able to pick it up as soon as possible. And key to that is to give yourself permission to fail. Right, so to understand, and again, this is going to come back to like how you believe the world works. But so one of the things I was brought up with, for example, was that the only bad mistakes you make are the ones you don't learn from. Right, so to be able to fail is important. If you have fear of failure, obviously that's going to be very difficult. Okay, so but again, you want to be able to uncover that, and you want to ideally have a strategy for addressing that when it comes up. So who's in my corner? Where am I going to go to? What's my process for resetting? All right, I reckon that's pretty much it. The key though to all of this, like I said, and I'll continue to say, is live your life, right? Walk the path. So it's you know, the Sacred Path School it's a sacred path because you have to walk the path. So you can't just sit around and intellectualize it. You have to actually get out there and take steps on the path and go forwards. So I hope, so that's 12 episodes in this podcast. So that's the first series finished. My intention now is basically to go out and interview people and ask them these questions. So what do you believe about free will versus destiny? What are the habitual practices that you know, you live your life by? What are your key values? What's your life vision? All those sorts of things. That's what I want to do, and share that information with you as you listen to that. And again, I would really encourage you to do the same sort of thing. So thank you for listening. If you're listening to it on podcast, you know, do the social media type thing and click on if you find it useful. If it is, hopefully it is. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is Sacred Path School, Facebook Sacred Path School, and again, thank you very much. Bye for now.